Hi, what's going on guys? It's Almond. Welcome back to another Wizard101 video. In today's video, we're going to be talking about if Wizard101 did actually pretty well this year. I know a lot of players are going to have their own opinions saying, well, I think overall the year was bad, or some players might say that it's really good, but I'm going to give you guys my opinion. We're also going to look at all the previous updates from this year and give you guys my opinion. Did they do well this year? I honestly think they did pretty well, surprisingly. There are some nitty-gritty things that I don't like that they did, but we'll talk about that as well. So if you do enjoy this type of content, be sure to leave a like, subscribe, all that type of stuff, and let's get into it, shall we? So the first update that actually came out this year is Rate My Stitch. I know there's like some patches and stuff like that within the year, but we're not really going to talk about it. We're going to go based upon the update notes. So back in March, where we had the Rate My Stitch update, honestly, the Rate My Stitch update, at first it seemed like the most useless thing to me at first, just at a glimpse, because you're like, okay, why do I need to rate somebody's stitch? Whatever, I don't see a use in this. Then they added the progress bar that showed that if you got to a certain amount of points, you can stitch one item for free. And if you did this on multiple characters, you can get like 7 free stitches. So that's like almost like a whole, that's like almost 2 full gear sets, which honestly, that was pretty good. So that's what a lot of people do nowadays. Of course, it comes with the free cosmetic emotes and the teleport effect, but that requires you to, like, you know, do stitches or like rate people's stitches. I think for like 100 days or like 200 days or something like that. I don't even remember, but it's like you can only do 20 per day, and that's about it. So overall, I think at initial glance it was completely terrible, but I think it can still be improved upon. Of course, like, I want to be able to like look at someone's outfit in person, like, and just be like, oh, let me just rate them. Like, if I see someone on my friends list, I can rate their stitch type thing, but it won't affect the leaderboards. It'll just be like, oh, this is what my friends rated me or something like that. That would be somewhat kind of nice, and they can add that like as like a daily thing for points, like, oh, rate 5 of your friends outfits, something like that would be nice. Of course, it wouldn't affect the leaderboards. It would just, you know, for points, free points, why not? But there's that. So we had the whole Rate My Stitch thing, of course, and yeah, I think the main highlight was because of the free stitch, I think, if in my opinion. Now, challenge mode, I think this was the whole introduction of challenge mode as well for this year. And challenge mode at first was pretty underwhelming. I don't think it was done properly at first, and it still definitely needs to be reworked a little bit, but the introduction was done pretty well. I like the idea of just going in and, you know, fighting these bosses that at one point we were like, this is the most like difficult fight, to now even being more difficult. Now, of course, these 3 challenge mode fights, the one for, I believe, Storm Titan, Hollow Heroes, and I think Medulla, these give you guys a key for the first time of completing it. Now, the ones in Wallaroo, when we talk about it later on, do not give a gold key at first completion. At 50 completions, you do get a gold key, but not for 1 anymore. So these 3 still will give you a gold key. And honestly, I think Medulla was done pretty well. Storm Titan was done pretty well. Hollow Heroes still needs to be reworked a little bit. It's, you can't even finish it right now. Like, they released this back in March, and it's like December, and that fight is still bugged to this day. Even with Wallaroo coming out, they just never went back to Hollow Heroes to go fix it. You cannot complete this for the badge. So if you want the badge, those people who like grind up the badges and stuff like that, you are still in shambles because they have yet to fix this fight for however many months at this point. And you can still complete it, you just don't get your gold key. And the rewards, I mean, you're never gonna go farm these bosses if we're being realistic. People are just gonna do it for the one-time completion for the badge, and that's it. There's no incentivized reason to go back and farm these, but we'll talk more about challenge mode later in this video. So initial reaction, it was kind of, it was good. It was good. Like, I like going back to these fights, but just Hollow Heroes just not being fixed to this date is what is in shambles, if I'm being honest. Of course, we got Beastman forums. Everyone's gonna have their opinions about these. I'm not really gonna talk too much about it. And then there was the new addition of the Decathlon claws and the Draconian set, which, I mean, hey, it's cosmetic stuff. We're not going to complain. Everyone has their own opinion on this as well. Will I ever farm this? Probably not, just because I'm more of a Mushu guy, and I only do different stitches when I'm doing like a certain gear set, maybe like for fishing or something like that. That's the only time I switch it up. But mainly all my fits are like Mushu themed. So this just does not fit in that category as much. But I can see people just grinding it up for collector's sake. I know a lot of people like the other variants of this fit, so I mean, hey, there's no negative to this at all. I mean, it's just an outfit for players to farm up, of course. Then we have the introduction to the Nightmare Gauntlet. Now the Nightmare Gauntlet, really good. I think this is like, I'd say like one of my favorite gauntlets up there. I'm not gonna say it's the best, but it's up there. The rewards that you get, like the energy jewels that you get from here, everything like that falls underneath from here. And then the robe, of course, and then they added a vendor at the end that you can talk to, and you know, you can have the pity system. This was done correctly, and I'm proud of them for that. We needed something like this, and I hope moving forward that is the standard. We should have like a pity system at the end where we can talk to somebody. I do want the next gauntlet, I will probably make a video about talking about what I want to see from the next gauntlet, but there is some things I do want to see in the next gauntlet. But energy jewels was perfect for this gauntlet. It was done right. A lot of players would want energy jewels, and plus, especially with the whole raid setups nowadays, everyone's rocking energy on their pet. That's what it's turned into. And overall, energy jewels are just always good to have, not gonna lie. This is just like the straight up source to go get it, which I like, because the other gauntlet, I think Unforgiven Dead people do for the Pierce jewels, for the spell proof Defy jewels, and then of course we have like the lock and key one that people farm. Even though it's a rare draw, people still farm it. I hope that the next gauntlet has something like that too, because at least it adds some type of factor of people wanting to farm for something, even if it's done. And then they added the PvP battle pass. I mean, hey, even though I don't do PvP, I still just complete it for the for the Lunari and like for some of the other stuff. But that's about it. No, there's not much to say about it. But hey, I mean, gives PvP players an incentive, I guess. But it's another battle pass stacked up on everything like that. So there's that, and then they did a whole bunch of bug fixes, quest fixes, yada yada yada, and then the whole dual schooling stuff. So that's basically a summarization of March, right? So March had some ups and downs, of course, mainly ups. Just the only down thing was, I guess, just one of those things that they just haven't fixed, right? Why haven't they fixed it? Who knows? And then we move over to July, the Crying Sky raid, and obviously I'm gonna have my own opinions to this. Everyone's gonna have their own opinions to this. Even the players who just didn't even do the raid yet have their own opinions against this. Now, Crying Sky raid as a whole, do I like it? Yes. Aesthetically amazing, boss mechanics amazing, apparently like Shabab Elemental and Voice of Death up there with my favorite bosses, of course. On how, I mean, is anyone gonna figure out his meteor? The world may never know. We're just gonna keep doing the cheese. If we're being completely honest. And then by the time they fix the cheese, are people gonna want to do the fight? I don't know. It's like the Void Raid. People still do it, even though like Dragoon was just nerfed. You can't use it anymore in the raids. But people use myths. People use the Morgantual on fires. Like there's other things that people do, which, I mean, hey, you're just not gonna see as much people doing it anymore. But overall, I think the raid was done pretty well, but we had a lot of issues at first. I think it was like the most chalked up thing at the beginning, like test realm, everything like that, and even the live realm, when a lot of things were bugged in that raid. There were so many things. I think to this day, I think there's still some things that people have concerns about in the raid, and it's way easier than it was before. Before it was like in shambles. I think the main thing that people didn't like is that the fight had a balanced death mob, which was so annoying in certain fights because the amount of like echoing and everything like that, and it's just no. It still exists, but it's just not in the priest fights anymore. It's on the side fights if somebody wants to go get the outside cards. So there's that. So it's like a hit or miss. The Shabbat, like the Crying Sky raid was a hit or miss in my opinion, but overall it was, I think it was done properly. Just the gear isn't that great. It really isn't. That's the only downside. Like it aesthetically looks amazing, but just the gear is not that good. Yeah. I guess other than the wands, I guess for PvP players, I guess you can argue the wands because they give shad rating instead of pip conserve, and I think at most I would say that the decks are good too for the item card. The Dragon Blade, I like that, but just for some reason the upgrades for that, I think like the one, what was the next upgrades, the upgrades that we just recently got, they got rid of the Dragon Blade, which to me is like, why? I think that kind of ruins for me, like I don't want to upgrade it. It's like what they did with the Void decks. The Void decks had a fuel for every school, and once you upgraded it turned into an elf. Like what? Like I would still want an upgrade that still has my fuel. I don't know why you guys would get rid of that, but that's why it's like, it's kind of like a hit or miss type thing. Name change, gender option. I think this was like literally one of the most requested things in the game, because people made accounts way back in the day, and you know, they were young, they didn't like what they chose as their name, and they kind of stuck with it because they already leveled up the character and they have like exclusive stuff on that character, yada yada yada, the list goes on. And people were able to do this. Of course, we had some funny things with the name and gender change, because the fact that people found out names that were inappropriate, and some of them made its way to live realm, like not really inappropriate, but like kind of memey. But there was a lot of inappropriate names back in test realm, like Ocean Titan Disaster. Like what? I don't know how that doesn't cross their mind, but yeah, so that happened. Overall though, this was like, that's a really good thing that they added into the game, 100%. And I think this was the, what was this, challenge mode updates? I guess they like changed it. Yeah, there's still known bug in challenge mode. So yeah, this is still broken. This is still broken. But this was a big change. I think this was like one of the biggest changes that happened for advanced combat. That you can't faint, you can't bad juju, you can't backdraft. The bad juju, I mean, people did use in the raid for the void raid. That basically got nerfed right off the rip. And then backdraft, if they allowed backdraft, oh my gosh, you know how many people, including me, we were using backdraft in test realm and just nuking bosses, which is just, if you think about it, that's just unfair. We were able to like 3-round bosses or 2-round bosses, like the whole fight with backdraft. Like like, good thing they got rid of it, but like still, same thing as dimension shift, shatter and feeble, so it makes us use gambits more, or like not the gambits, the ramps, which I mean, hey, it makes more versatile fights. Of course, this of course didn't make its way to live realm. I'm glad it didn't make its way to live realm. I did not like this. Not the spellman stuff, the spellman paths were given, but there was a mechanic back in test realm where they added split mechanic on these spells. As much as I like split, there has to be something else that has to be done with the split mechanic, because the shad spells that you get from, I think it is Mirage, yeah, Mirage, I enjoy those spells, don't get me wrong, the spells look aesthetically good, I love those. I think literally one of my favorite spells is the storm spell, Iron Sultan, right? Just the split mechanic is not it for it. I feel like if they did a spell element path for it, I would like to see some type of like removal, or like some type of like gambit mechanic on it, or not really a gambit, but like clear, or even like something like that, right? I would love to see that on those spells one day, but that's not happening anytime soon. But the split mechanic is not it. It's just not. And I know whenever AOEs get their whole change or their rework, a lot of players are gonna complain, but we're not gonna worry about the future right now. We're just gonna worry about what happened this year. Of course, Beast Moon forms. I think honestly, I do kind of like the balance ninja pig. I did try it out in test realm. The balance ninja pig, Ice Cyclops is broken. Everyone already knows this. And then Storm Minnow, interesting. I think when I did play during, I think like the PvE mayhem or whatever it is, I did use this and it was kind of interesting, just to clear out dots. I kind of liked it. So there's that. InPerson Kiosk, I'm gonna be honest, useless. I don't know anybody who uses this, and no one talks about it at all. I haven't seen anybody like really talk about this. I know 1 or 2 people I know that made a video about this, but overall it's just, why? I mean, yeah, like it changes the cost, of course, so if you go to the kiosk it's more expensive, but in-person cost is different, which of course, I mean, I do see some use behind that, but really nobody uses this. I'm not gonna say nobody. I'd say like 90%, 95% of people don't use this. And if you do use this, I'm proud of you using this. But yeah, it has no use, really. And then Pet Derby returns, clickbait. It didn't really come back. It was just added to Pet Promenade so people can get points for it. And Pet Derby is not really revived. Of course, when they got rid of the old items that the vendor had, like the 5 energy and the amulets, which I think they should have still kept, like the 5 energy amulets in the vendor. Will Pet Derby actually be reworked at one point? Not really. I mean, they have other things to focus on, especially with this upcoming year. They're not releasing a new world. They're releasing side content at the end of the year, which I'll probably make a separate video about, but yeah. So this was just clickbait. And then PvP changes, level scaling was added. Level scaling was a good idea. right? But it's still poorly made in a sense. Like it does need some changes, because if you are a high level and you do scale down to somebody in like the lower leagues, your stats are a little bit worse than what theirs are, which is kind of weird because you have to reach your own stat caps to, and then once you get scaled down, you'll reach the stat caps of other things. But overall, it's still kind of better to play on the school that's designated in that league than scaling down. Like you can still definitely scale down, don't get me wrong, it's just a little bit buggy and some other issues, which hopefully they fix one day. Don't know. Of course, a lot of players, what they want to see is tournaments come back. Tournaments is like what I hear from a lot of people, tournaments and like 2v2s, 3v3s, 4v4s, but don't know how that's gonna go because the fact is that like they would have to adjust AOEs first, and then once they go all down that whole route, then they can probably do 2v2s and 3v3s. I think they would start off with 2v2s, then work their way with like 3s and 4s, because definitely I can see it being a whole mess in 4v4s. So level scaling was nice, but at the same time, for PvP, it's a bit weird. It's a bit weird. Now, this one that is a notable change I do want to talk about is the spell changes. Specifically for this update is because the thing is that we have Catch of the Day, Sacred Charge, and Burning Rampage spell elements. Now, this was honestly a really good change. This whole update right here was like the best thing that they could have added. Of course, you know, we all have like their own opinions about, you know, Goat Monk, everything like that, having their own standard paths and everything like that. But overall, these spell changes particularly were really good. Everyone wanted spellman changes for these, and now they're like really good. And Sacred Charge overall, I think is a bit better. Before it was just terrible, but now that it has like an aura attached to it, I think it's still kind of useful to that certain extent. But it just hasn't seen some like usage at the moment, at least in PvE, because why use that when you can just build school or play as other schools or have other schools with you, you know? So there's that. But overall, I think this was a really good change with all these spellman changes. And then we can go back to this, which was the gold key boss back in September, which I should probably talk about as well. This gold key boss, I love it, don't get me wrong, but there definitely needs to be like some change to it. I think if we're comparing it to time wise, like I rather, like before when this boss like actually released and it was busted, I like just farming, I like that. I mean, of course, you know, the devs are gonna say otherwise. I like that. I like being able to defeat a boss quick and just quickly get my stuff done, right? But the amount of rounds that this takes to do now, especially after the patch of like no longer stagger joining to work, it's like 6 or 7 rounds, right? I'd rather just go farm all the other key boss spell elements first, and that can just one round them and just come back to this later. But still, I mean, a lot of people wanted this because the fact is that it drops Burrower gear, and Burrower gear was the most busted template to date this year. Burrower is like legit what made PvP pay to win again. I think they were on like on a really good slope of making like the game free to play in a sense when it came to the gear. But once Burrower gear dropped and it was only accessible from packs, that's when the game became busted. And then eventually, you know, we got the whole thing of like Burrower gear being able to farm and stuff like that. So this was a good addition and it was needed, and it even has a pity system, and the pity system was done properly. The only thing I wish it had was pity system for the spell elements, because I know the devs are going to say otherwise, that they're never going to add pity system for this particular boss, but I think it would have been nice 100%, because if I'm someone that already has Burrower gear, whatever, and I have all this excess usage, let me use my stuff on something else, like, but add something else to the vendor. At least I can use something on, maybe if it's jewels or something, I don't know. Azoth, like, I don't know, they can add something else to that vendor other than gear, definitely 100%, but just don't know what they would want. I really think that they should just put spell elements 100%. It's just nice, I think. So overall, that's good. And then of course boss rematches got changed this year as well, so we had that edition, which of course I uploaded videos on, but those all got changed over time, so I probably should make a video on those eventually. And I think that kind of sums up this like couple months, right? There's some other things that came in, but I'm trying to go based upon what I remembered, based upon the notes. And then of course Wallaroo, which honestly they ended off on a good note. Wallaroo had like a really good thing that people wanted. We got new AOEs, even though people still don't know how to use the Arch Mastery, which to me is kind of concerning. And Rainbow Serpent is not correct because the image is wrong. But overall, AOEs were really good. I think a lot of people like these AOEs, and it's nice, but just people don't know how to work Arch Mastery. arc mastery properly, because they're just running in there with the highest arc mastery stat, which you're ruining it for everybody else, but it's fine. I don't have to worry about that in team scenarios, but in team up, I'm sorry for you guys, because people do not understand how to use arc mastery properly. Guild Museum, I liked it on Test Realm. I'm not too sure if I'm gonna be doing it. Like, I mean, I still haven't done it yet. Even though it's here, I still haven't done the Guild Museum on live, just because I just haven't the energy to. Because the fact of the matter is, you need people that are on. Of course, it's easier to do than like a raid, in my opinion, like getting people together, because you can do this with like less people and still be able to do it. But ideally, you want to do it with more people, kind of similar to a raid. There's definitely like 1 or 2 guilds, probably 3 guilds I know that are actually working on this consecutively. Beyond that, I don't know if anyone else is. Eventually I will probably cover this at one point, but yeah, I kind of already made a video talking about this. Beast forms, of course, we have Fire Fairy right now in the shop, which I know a lot of players I know that I usually play with are always talking about Fire Fairy. I know Myth Croc people just don't like because the minion, but like once the minion gets to this like second round, it's actually really good. But it's the fact of the matter is that once people see the minion, they're just gonna nuke the minion. Life Rat, I know some people had their opinions about this. Balanced Elf, I like Balanced Elf personally, but just the way it looks and aesthetically as well, and it has a lore master, why not? And then Death Colossus, when people saw this, they thought this thing was busted because of tier 5 having an afterlife where you essentially come back alive and you steal like health off of your whole enemy, which it's amazing to even think about. So there's that. And then I think that's about it. I mean, we had some Guild Museum changes and some Hasty Harvest changes, which I probably will make a video on eventually. And yeah, I think Wallower was done properly, especially with the pity system. The pity system was godlike. I still am surprised and baffled on people how like they don't like the pity system. They don't like being able to do the badge on every character, which to me, I'm like, it's a fair price to pay to be able to get anything that you want at any time from this vendor if you have the Dream Water. Just think about that. Like, I know I was able to finish it within like a week, right? But obviously that's not realistic for everybody. If whatever I do is not realistic because I had to spend so many hours, especially grinding up all my characters and farming the Dream Water, which not everyone's gonna do, of course. Like people I know that are still leveling up their characters, of course. So there's that. But overall, I think what I have to say, it was a good year for Wiz. I'd say so, yeah. I think they did it properly. There were some things that needed to be changed. Like Call It Hero is notable. They should fix that. I don't know why. How did we get an update that was not even finished? Yes, they did make some mistakes. Of course, if Burrower gear was not introduced the way it was introduced from packs, and instead that template being the raid template instead, more people would be doing the raids, of course. Way more people. Am I saying raids are dying? No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying more people would have done the raid if the raid template was Burrower and not what it is now. Because the fact is that Burrower gear was broken, and it still is. I don't think it's ever gonna come back in like the 170 upgrades and stuff like that. Don't expect it. Because the fact is, I know that they kind of messed up on that template. And even if it does come back, I think they would change it up a little bit so it's not as broken. But we don't want a scenario where people go back and use templates that like are from like past levels. Like it's like us using headmaster ones in the raid. I mean, headmaster ones are like basically like merciless at that point, just better. I would like to see headmaster ones return at one point with upgrades. When that day comes, everyone's gonna be excited. But at the same time, it just depends if they do it properly. We'll have to wait and see regarding that. But that is it for the video, guys. Let me know your guys' thoughts, opinions. Do you think Wiz was really good this year? Do you have some nitty-gritty things that you want to talk about in the comment section? Let me know and I'll try my best to respond to them, of course. But yeah, overall I think it was a good year. Just some mistakes that they made, some things that they need to change up on, and definitely they need to listen more to their community 100%, which they're slowly working on, but they definitely need to listen more to the community 100%, which I think the best thing that they did for listening to the community was changing Rainbow Serpent. Rainbow Serpent was definitely the biggest thing where I'm just like, okay, they actually heard us out and they changed the spell to make it better, because it was the only spell out of these 7 that required 2 school pips. So I'm glad they listened to that regarding the community and everyone else too. So hopefully we'll see what 2020 what is it, 4 at this point 2024 brings when it comes to Wiz. I know there's gonna be a lot of things that I'm kind of expecting for 2024, and I'll probably make a video regarding that as well. So leave a like, subscribe, all that type of stuff, and join Discord if you guys haven't. I appreciate all the people that have been joining the Discord, subscribing, everything like that. And yeah, I'll talk to you guys in the next one. Peace out, guys.